Welcome to another lecture series in Science for Grade 10. Still, we are in the topic plate tectonics, but now we will learn about types of plate boundaries. And at the end of this presentation, you should be able to describe the different types of plate boundaries. Fair use disclaimer: borrowed materials included in this presentation are owned by the respective copyright holders and are used here for educational purposes only, such as teaching, copies for classroom use, and research. Studying plate boundaries is important because along these boundaries, deformation of the lithosphere is happening. These geologic events have a great impact not only on the environment but also on us. It may harm us, but it may also help us in terms of resources and protection. We have learned from plate tectonic theory that the lithosphere is divided into plates. These plates are broken into pieces like jigsaw puzzles as seen in the picture. We have major, large plates, and we have also minor, smaller plates. We have named some of those from our previous presentation. Also, stated in the plate tectonic theory that the plates are in constant motion, but we do not notice this because the movement is very slow. As they move, the plates interact along their boundaries that produce volcanoes and mountains and generate earthquakes. In other words, volcanism, mountain building, and earthquakes occur along the plate boundaries. Now, we will characterize the different types of plate boundaries in terms of motion, effect, topography, and relation to volcanic activity. The first type of plate boundary is termed convergent boundary, wherein two plates move toward each other. As seen in the picture, there are two ways at which convergent plate boundary may happen: A. Tensional convergent boundary, and B. Compressional convergent boundary. What is the difference between these two types of convergent plate boundary? Tensional convergent boundary occurs when one plate is forced under the other due to the difference in density. The motion is subducting and the effect is destructive as one plate is destroyed at the subduction zone. This commonly happens between two oceanic plates and between oceanic plate and continental plate, thus forming trenches and volcanoes. Tensional convergent boundary is associated with volcanic activity. On the other hand, compressional convergent boundary occurs when two plates move toward each other. The motion is colliding and the effect is collision. This commonly happens between two continental plates. Subduction ceases, thus no volcanoes are formed, only mountain belts. Compressional plate boundary is not associated with volcanic activity. The second type of plate boundary is termed divergent boundary, wherein plates move apart, creating zone of tension. The plates are pulled apart and the hot molten materials underneath come out. Now, let us try to describe and characterize divergent boundary. Divergent plate boundary happens when two plates move away from each other. Thus, the motion is spreading. The effect is constructive. As hot molten materials underneath come out and cool down, they form the new seafloor. Primarily happened in the divergent plate boundary. These forms rift, ridges, and volcanic islands. Divergent plate boundary is associated with volcanic activity. The third type of plate boundary is termed transform fault boundary, wherein plates slide or grind each other without converging or diverging. Now, let us try to describe and characterize transform fault boundary. Transform fault boundary happens when two plates slide past each other. The movement is described as lateral slipping. The motion is sliding and the effect is conservative. not destructive nor constructive, meaning to say, no plate is destroyed nor new seafloor is formed. No geologic features are formed, but only occurrences of earthquake. Transform fault boundary is not associated with volcanic activity. Here are the relevant references used in the presentation. I'll see you again in the next lecture series in Science for Grade 10.